Hello friends, welcome to my channel Sushant Chess Spice. Today we are going to look at the next topic, that is the theoretical Rook Endgame, and we are having a look at the Philidor's position. Last time we saw how Rook and Pawn are able to win against the Rook. Today we are going to see how and in which kind of positions single Rook is able to hold against Rook and Pawn. So the first condition that is required is the king should be underneath the pawn, okay, anywhere on the pawn's line or next to it. It should not be cut off by the opponent's rook. Situation like these, okay, which are very unfavorable, where the king is cut off from the pawn. So of course Philidor discovered this idea, hence the name Philidor's position. This position was established in the year 1777. And now what we see here, there is a very easy technique actually. We should note that the black king or whichever king who is trying to win should not settle on the 6th rank. If the king settles on the 6th rank, then the position becomes difficult. So what I mean by settling on the 6th rank, whenever the king is on the 6th rank, the rook should be able to give check from behind. So that is why here, let me show you, there are some ways of going wrong in the position. The move rook d8 check loses by force. There is some complicated analysis, but I will show you the easy ones right now. Black plays king e3, king takes opposition, threatens to deliver mate by rook h1, and generally it is said that whichever pawn is there, when the king has to choose between two sides, the king should choose the short side. So see, this pawn is dividing the board to 3 files on this side and 4 to the other side. So king should choose the short side and the rook should give from checks from the longer side. That is generally the case. So king f1 is a better defense here. Let's look at the move kd1. After kd1, black will now by force reach the Luceno's position. See, rook h1 check, king goes to c2, king e2. If rook goes check from d2, then king f3 and e2 comes. So if let's say rook e8, e3, and the checks are not possible from the other side because king will be immediately able to attack the rook. So after king f2, rook check, ke1, so king is using the zigzag method, and after kd3, e2, and if rook tries to attack the pawn, simple rook check, forcing the king away, and once the king goes away, kf2, rook check, and the rook interposes nicely. And we see after rook f3, kf3, kd2, kf2, and the pawn wins. So this I wanted to show you because if we are not knowing the theory, then after rook d8 check, a simple drawn endgame can be messed up. Let's look at one more line. After rook d8, ke3, king f1, many people think that this position is drawn, but it's not drawn. Black has a very strong intermezzo. See, rook f2 check. Rook h1 check might allow the game to become drawn. After kg2, rook moves away, rook can go to b8 or sometimes c8, keeping attack on the e4 pawn. Okay, but after rook f2 check, if king moves to g1, then this rook can just move away, keeping the king cut off, and the pawn can promote. And after the move ke1 over here, now the rook goes to a2, threatening rook a1. Now see, the king is in trouble. So if let's say king moves to f1, again the better attempt, rook check, king moves to g2 and ke2. This rook b8, now the rook is trying to give check from the side. This is one of the drawing techniques. But here black can play the move e3, and after rook b2 check, king d3, again rook check, kd2, again rook check, king c3, and the black king will soon come to the d2 square again. The white rook is unable to keep itself on the second rank. So rook goes away and pawn promotes to e2 and e1, and black wins the game. Rook checks we know can be stopped by taking the king near to the opponent's rook. Do note that after rook d8 check, ke3, king f1, rook check, kg1. There is a very strong intermezzo here, rook d2, which makes the winning task very easy. Now what happens? Rook can be traded and the tempo gained after the rook move. Black can play the move king f3, very strong. Now if rook f8 check ke2 and the pawn reaches e3 winning, and if rook comes to a3, then e3 again going to black is going to win after the move rook d1. And after any move like rook a1, in this position we can try the move rook g2 also against the center pawn. The move rook g2 wins by force. After kf1, e2 check, ke1, rg1, and the rook is lost. I will be doing all these positions with the pawn on 6th rank later on, so I am not going into too much details of these positions right now. Let's look at the right method to draw the game. I should not allow the king to come on the 6th rank, so the good move is rook a3. Very important move. Rook first cuts the king from coming to the 6th rank. If black plays rook h1 check, king just goes to e2, again check, king goes back to e1. So this is mere repetition. Other attempts of trading the rooks won't work. Let's say black manages and gets the rook and trades from f3. Then we note that after takes, kf2, ke4, the only drawing move kf1. And we see that these king and pawn games will lead to an easy draw. After ke3, ke1, pawn is as it is ahead of the king, so it's not possible to win. So we have discussed all these positions during king and pawn games. After rook a3, the only way to make progress is the move e3. And now black can try to get his king to e4, f3, hide behind the pawn, and then use the rook's check. So what white does? Moment the pawn reaches the 6th rank, white takes his rook back to the a8 square. This is the simplest technique. And now what we see, there are no ways for black to stop the rook check from behind. The square e3 which was sheltered in front of the pawn is now taken away because of the move e3. So after let's say rook h5, rook d8 check, if the rook interposes, then takes, and after ke2, we already know that ke4, ke1 only move, and after kf3, kf1, it's drawn game now. After the move rook a8, if king moves to d3, king d3 is a better attempt, threatening rook h1 mate. King moving to f1 will allow e2 check and black will win. So white starts the check from behind. Rook d8 check, king c4, king can try to attack the rook. Rook c8 check, kd5, rook d8 check, and as soon as the black king goes 2 or more spaces away from the pawn, see it's 2 or more than 2 spaces away from the pawn, the rook goes behind and attacks the pawn. And we see that now there is no way to protect the pawn. After the move rook h3, ke2, king d5, just rook takes e3 and the pawn is lost. So the attempt by the king to go zigzag and attack the rook doesn't work, and the game leads to a draw. d8 check, ke4, rook e8 check, kf3, rook f8 check, kg3. Again we can either give check or go rook e8, forcing the king to come to f3 and again checks. So these checks cannot be avoided now because the king is sitting in front of the pawn, so no hiding place for the king on e2, f2 or d2 squares, and the rook's checks cannot be blocked. Bringing the rook in middle doesn't help. So the simplest technique, cut the opponent's entry on the 6th rank with the rook, and moment the pawn pushes, we go back on the 8th rank and start delivering checks with the rook. Okay, so this was all about simple basic rook endgame, the Philidor position. In future we will be covering up other rook endgames also, how the Philidor position can go wrong also if misplayed. I hope you are enjoying these lessons. Do like, share and subscribe the channel. Thanks for your time.